Hey everybody, Nick here, and today I got a very philosophical video for you. And by the way, this is mostly just eye candy. This is going to be an audio-centric video, so don't feel the need to watch there. But anyways, I'd like to talk to you today about materialism, because I've been thinking a lot about this. This was actually prompted by a buddy of mine, Anatole, shot me an email, said, "Hey Nick, I've been thinking a lot about materialism in the gear world. I know you've mentioned it in the past. Do you have any thoughts on that?" And you know, I do, and this gave me a chance to finally sit down and sort of let that crystallize, if you will. Because honestly, I've felt awkward about it for a long time. I've mentioned this before, but I feel a little weird about what I do as a gear reviewer and as a member of the everyday carry community. Whether it's in watches, pens, lights, knives, whatever, all of that there's a very strong sense of materialism, and I think I am probably guilty in promoting some of that. And so I'd like to talk a little bit about that. Look, materialism at its core, I mean, you can define it in many ways, but the one that makes most sense to me is when you've, in your mind, made some sort of a link between your personal happiness, you know, as a human being, and the things that you own, the things that you will buy, or the things that that kind of thing. When material goods in your life are viewed as a source of your happiness, that's materialism on the whole. Now, don't get me wrong. I mean, this is not an inherently unhealthy thing. Sure, there are some people who might argue that it is, but no one is saying that you can't, enjoy some material pleasures. The conclusion of this rant is not sell everything, buy a bowl, and go begging. No, that's a different world. Instead, you can enjoy these material pleasures, whether it's a beautiful painting in your living room, whether it's a masterfully crafted watch, or whether it's a functional and beautiful pocket knife, a comfortable or frankly more than comfortable house. I mean, heck, even just a bank account that's sufficiently large that you don't have to worry about it. That's a beautiful thing. That's a material thing, but it's a source of some joy, certainly. Those things won't bring you joy in and of themselves, but they sure as heck won't hurt. And if something's bringing you joy, don't let me stop you here. But what I am saying is that this is something that we in the gear community really do need to think about, because it is absolutely a thing, and whether you're aware of it or not, it's there, and in some cases, it's actually being used against you. I mean, there is a fundamental problem. For instance, I'll use watches as an example here. How do you sell somebody who's got a watch another watch? So, I mean, assuming it's perfectly functional, it's a solid watch, there's no big issue with it. I mean, there are relatively few options there, because it's like, well, you've got one already, you're done. But marketers aren't content with that, and well, it's their job not to be. And so there are three main approaches that people take. The first of these is to make a watch that's, well, better, that will actually make them happier, and to make that affordable to them. I mean, if you can take somebody who has a watch that they're okay with, maybe it's not meeting all their needs, and you can make one that's better, and you can sell it to them at a price that they're happy with, and that's an easy sale. And better still, it's an actual increase in happiness. If you have been wearing a watch that you really don't like, that's got all of these issues, and then you give somebody or you sell somebody a watch that doesn't have all those issues, that is a better tool in their life, then that is a wonderful thing. They were using something that wasn't working well, and now they're not, and that can be a source of honest joy. A better tool is absolutely a thing to enjoy, and honestly, that's my goal as a reviewer. That's the area where I want to interact with materialism, where it's like, you may have something that you're not in love with. Let me show you some things that you might be in love with that you can probably afford, or frankly, that are worth saving up to afford. So that's one approach, is to make something better that'll actually make them happier. That's great, but unfortunately, that's not super common. The second approach, that's pretty ugly but very, very common, is to make them unhappy with whatever it is that they've got. If they've already got a watch, just convince them that they don't have a watch that they want. Convince them that they've got a problematic watch. And these are things like, the sorts of hype features, like, oh, wait, your watch doesn't have a helium escape valve? Well, okay, I'm sure it's a fine piece, but good luck if you ever go saturation diving, you poor SOB. Like, it's ridiculous, but it absolutely works. People are like, well, why doesn't my diver have a helium escape valve? The answer is because no one freaking needs one, but that's beside the point. Or saying, things like, oh, well, the new models, they're not just using an out-of-the-shelf ETA movement. Well, this is an in-house movement now. That's way better. Why? Because we said so. Either way, I digress. But still, and even in the knife world, sure, and I'm guilty of this myself, like, oh, sure, VG10, that's a fine steel right there, but now they've got one in HAP 40 or an M390 or all of these kinds of things. I mean, steel snobbery is just creeping that line forward. It's, like, well, you were happy with this knife for many years, but now there's better, so you should not be happy with it. That's not stellar. Or even just like simple things like, I know you love the thing you've got now, but the new one's got a better clip, or it's got, who knows. I mean, or even just at the social level, to fundamentally, like, look how often everybody else is trying out new gear. Don't you want to be cool like the rest of the folks on Instagram? Or even better, don't you want to find a better solution for you? All of these things have the effect of taking something that you might have been happy with, maybe not like, oh my God, perfectly happy with, but plenty happy with, and making you no longer happy with it and make you go and search out something else. And honestly, this is the biggest problem with what I do as a reviewer. I get comments on occasion that I know that they're meant jokingly and that they're not intended to hurt, but they actually kind of break my heart a little bit, along the lines of, somebody once said to me, I watch the reviews of things I own to make me hate them before I sell them. That's not the point, but thank you. I'm glad I'm effective. Or people say, oh, damn it, I used to love this knife, but now I can't unsee that, or I can't unsee the problems. People, oh, that's accurate, but I used to like this, and that I hate that that's a thing, honestly. Not that people are saying it, that's their experience, but that's an awkward part of what I do here as a critical reviewer, maybe even a negative one some days. Let's be real here. A part of what I do is highlight the things that make me unhappy about products, and if you've been happy with something that's on my table, and now you see why you maybe shouldn't be, that's just not great. And even on the social end, constantly picking up new gear is a thing that I do as a reviewer, but it doesn't mean that it's a great thing or it's a healthy thing, certainly. But, anyways, that's beside the point. So that's the second approach, though, is to take something that that people already have and make them not happy with it, so that they will then proceed to buy one from you that, well, maybe might make them happy, or at least that's the dream. The other final approach to selling somebody a watch who's already got a watch on is to sell them the watch by selling them a happiness that isn't about the watch at all. This is really, really common in marketing and in advertising. For instance, there was a watch advertising campaign some time back. The idea was, the rough thrust of it was, you don't buy this brand of watch. Instead, you're just taking care of it for the next generation. That is, among marketing campaigns, maybe one of the most brilliant I'm aware of, because think about everything that's in there. By saying you don't own this watch, you're just taking care of it for the next generation, you are putting forth this vision in somebody's mind of them maybe at an advanced age. Maybe they're a dignified elder statesman, if you will. They have had a beautiful, fulfilling life with a beautiful, fulfilling family, with family that they are deeply proud of, which is something that everybody, I think, wants, if they want to have a family, of course. But nevertheless, so you are in this position, and then you have this wonderful moment where to your son, your daughter, whatever, you hand over your beloved watch. You say, here, take this, and it will serve you just as well as it served me, and you hug, and there's, music playing in the background, that kind of thing. And then the person, your son, your daughter, whatever, goes on to wear that watch for the rest of their days, and then maybe, just maybe, they give it on to their child, and so your grandchild, and your great-grandchild, and your great-great-grandchild, and that watch keeps getting passed forward until the heat death of the universe, or however long it goes. I don't know what the folks were thinking when they came up with it. But whatever it is, that's powerful stuff, because it gets at the idea of the permanence, that we desire to have a legacy. We desire to stick around. That's the one thing that we all fear maybe most beyond death, is death and then being forgotten. And so this allows you to have this idea, and it puts aside a bunch of possibilities, like, well, maybe a kid doesn't like mechanical watches, or maybe a kid's not going to want a watch that you wore just because you wore it. I don't know, but it puts a bunch of those kinds of things aside, and gives this beautiful packaged fantasy for people to live out. And so when they go in and they buy the watch, what they're not actually buying the watch. I mean, sure, they get a watch at the end of it, but what they're buying is that idea, that desire, and that beautiful, beautiful fantasy there. On the knife world, it's a very similar, but it's very different. They're selling very often different fantasies. Look at the bearded badass kind of marketing, the high-speed, low-drag tactical marketing that you see in the knife world. people, selling these ads of these hyper-masculine types who, just set down the rifle and are, sharpening a stick with their knife or whatever the heck it is that they do in these freaking ads. But the idea here is it's very different. It's happiness that comes from preparedness, from being a badass, from, being able to handle anything that comes at us, because we have this idea, or at least in American culture, at least some parts of American culture, this hyper-masculine warrior type is aspirational. I will be happy if I am, as ready for the world as a Navy SEAL is. And you know how I get there? I buy this knife. And they're not selling you a knife. They're selling you a desire. They're selling you an image. I mean, look at other, GoRuck, the backpack company, has made a very, very good, they make good backpacks. Don't get me wrong. But their entire marketing image is you will be tough if you wear this backpack. They don't say it explicitly, but that's what they want you to believe and feel. And this also touches on, oh God, masculinity, cultural, all kinds of stuff in there. But the idea there is, again, you're selling somebody the fantasy that fantasy, they think, oh, well, if I were that badass, I would be happy. That would be cool. I would like that. And it's not about the knife, but they're still going to use it to sell it to you. Or even, look at the other aspirational marketing, imitation stuff that's going on. Omega with the man on the moon, man on the moon, man on the moon with the Speedmaster. It's like, well, no, I'm never going to be on the moon. Kind of be cool if I were on the moon someday, but still, hey, let's be real here. I'm never going to be on the moon. But there's a part of me, I wish I was involved in space exploration, because every damn kid wants to be an astronaut. Maybe not, but I sure did. Or James Bond. Omega put their watches, they pay huge amounts of money for James Bond to wear their watches. Because it's the same thing as the bearded badass thing. It's just a slightly different, variation, a different flavor. Secret agent badass rather than soldier of fortune badass, whatever. Or even celebrity placement. Why do you think watch companies pay celebrities to carry to wear their stuff? Because people look at that and like, oh, wow, I like him. I bet he's happy. Maybe if I buy that watch, I too will be happy. But those three approaches, the idea of selling them the watch by selling them something that's not about the watch at all, or making them unhappy with the watch they've got, or just making a better watch, all of those things depend on the idea that if I buy this watch, I will be happier. And that's a really effective way to sell people things. And there are, of course, more ways that materialism can work, but those are kind of the big ones, and those are the ones I noticed most, and they kind of bother me. Although, okay, I've got to be clear. The first one, making something better, that doesn't bother me. Feel free, guys, anytime, especially if you price it right. But anyways, the thing is, in order for any of these things to work, we have to buy into it. We have to believe it. We have to have this association in our mind that, buying a new watch can make us happier. Buying a new knife can make us happier. We have to have that in mind, and we do. That's the thing. This is a part of human nature. We wouldn't have, materialism is a part of, it's baked in at some level or another, or it's a deep flaw that we all have in the human condition. I don't freaking know what it is. But it's a thing for most of us. We believe it at some level, and we believe it at many different levels, actually. Sometimes we buy something and thinking, maybe at the most extreme level, you know what, if I buy this watch, I will be a happier person. I will be happier with my life. And that's, honestly, it's not been super realistic in my experience. When I bought this watch, I walked into the store and I was, X happy. And when I walked out of the store, yeah, there was a temporary, yeah, cool, I got a really nice watch on. But it didn't, change my life. It didn't make my life very different. No, even despite the fantasizing that one can do ahead of time, it's not going to make necessarily a long-term substantive change. If things in your life suck, they're still going to suck when you're wearing a new watch. It's just you'll be wearing a new watch while they keep sucking. And so that's kind of an important thing to keep in mind. Maybe it's more localized. Maybe if I buy the watch, I will be happy with this watch. I will be done with watches. I think I've joked about this before, but I think there's some realism to it. I think a lot of people in gear-related hobbies, their secret desire is that they will be able to stop. Is that they will find a piece of gear that is so good, that is so perfect, that they will just say, you know what? This is all I need. We're done here. I can sell all my other pocket knives and just have this one. I will sell all my other watches and I just have this one. Or maybe I will just have one dress watch. This isn't a dress watch. One sports watch, one dress watch. Then it's slippery slope again. But there's that desire that maybe this will be the one that makes me happy with watches. And, that's not super realistic. Again, because chances are we are addicted. We have a problem. That's why you are here watching my channel. But nevertheless, there is that desire. There is that fantasy of this is the one that's good enough to make me stop. And indeed, I think it is possible. I mean, my buddy Michael has actually gotten out of watches after being at it at great freaking heights, and I respect that deeply. I've gotten out of hi-fi. That one's pretty hard to do too. So it's out there, but it's not super common. I mean, there's that too, or maybe there's the social desire. This is very, very real in luxury goods of any kind, whether it's watches, high-end knives, whatever. Maybe this will make me fit in. And Instagram is brutal for this, because if you go on Instagram, you will see people, posting these, $100,000 wristwatches, just, random wrist shot, like, oh, having breakfast with my long ends on a freaking minute repeater. Okay, cool, no big deal. Yeah, not super realistic, but, it is what it is. You get, like, the douchey wrist shots, which I certainly indulge in, although mine are generally on a bus instead of in front of a Benz insignia. But still, you'll see that as a thing. Like, look at my luxury car, look at my scarf, look at all these things. Oh wow, what are you doing over there, wearing your Casio with your bus and whatnot? So there is the level of keeping up with the Joneses, or frankly, even just like the hype cycle. This is a very hyped knife, the Grimsmo Norseman. It's a very good knife, but it's a very hyped one, and so I think a lot of people look at it as like, oh wow, all the cool guys are getting those. Maybe I should pick one up too. And there's just that social element, and there's an element to which, fitting in can bring happiness. In-group identity is a thing that can bring us joy, but it may not, again, be a lasting joy, and that's a self-reinforcing cycle, by the way. It will never end. The Joneses, if you're keeping up with the Joneses are going to buy new crap, and so will you need to. So at a certain point, you may need to get off of that, or at least go bankrupt. But it's a thing. Honestly, I think the healthiest approach to all of this, to the materialism world, is just to try and be realistic. Think about it not in terms of, this will make me truly happy as a human, or this will make me finally stop buying watches. This will be the perfect pocket knife for me and I will never need another one. Or all of those things. Try and put that aside. Or even maybe this will make me cool. This will make me fit in. I know nothing's going to make me cool personally, but hey. But I think maybe the healthiest approach is to just try and be realistic about what's going on there. Think about it in the way that I try to do. I'm not going to claim success, but I try, which is, just like, okay, you know what? I see this. I want this. Maybe this is going to bring me some joy. I like good gear. This looks like good gear, and so I'm probably going to like this. Maybe I'll appreciate it. Maybe I'll appreciate elements of the craftsmanship. Maybe I'll appreciate elements of the functionality. Maybe I'll appreciate elements of the aesthetic beauty of it. And maybe that's going to be a thing. Just like I would appreciate art in my living room, I can appreciate this knife in my pocket. Or, maybe I'll keep it forever. Maybe I won't keep it forever. Maybe I'll sell it in 6 months. Who knows? It might be better than what I've got. It might be about the same as what I got. It might be a little bit worse. Who knows? And maybe I'll just enjoy the thrill of the chase a lot more than when I actually get it. I'm sure we've all had this experience where you spend, some amount of time saving up, getting ready, preparing to get something, and then when you actually get it, it's almost disappointing because it's like, oh, well, there went that hobby. And you realize that, yeah, I got a really nice watch, or yeah, I got a really nice knife, but that other part, that was a little cooler. But, there's some habit. But either way, maybe, and so if you could acknowledge the joy of the chase as well, that's really important. But you need to think about it in terms of, no, my life probably won't be substantially different whether I buy the watch or not. No, my life won't be substantially different if I'm blending in with everybody else in terms of what I own. No, this won't make me get out of watches. That's probably not ever going to happen, because I have a problem. But you can balance things a little bit more realistically if you're looking at it that way. If you're trying to keep an eye on your own internal materialism, and make sure that's not an issue. You can balance the realistic joy that you're likely to feel from something, because again, I'm not saying that getting a really nice knife or a really nice watch or something isn't going to bring you a little joy, especially if it's really well done. You can enjoy that 100%, but you need to be realistic about it and balance that against the pain. Like, okay, if I spent, $30,000 on a freaking really high-end wristwatch, that the watch would better freaking bring me joy for 30 grand, but you know what? The pain of losing 30 grand when I need to be trying to buy a house in Southern California, which, by the way, holy crap, how does anyone buy houses in Southern California? But anyways, trying to balance the joy against the pain there, I don't think it would work out well. Whereas if I'm telling myself stories about, my great grandchildren who are, already probably like mutants with dolphins or something like that, I don't freaking know. They'll be able to wear it. It's not a good way to balance it. And you can make a decision if you're thinking about it realistically with open eyes and probably end up a little bit happier. So this is just a big rant, I guess, but my reason for bringing it up is partly because I've just been thinking about it a lot. Partly to assuage my own guilt for participating in the cycle, certainly, but partly with the hopes of helping some people see maybe their actions a little bit more realistically. I don't know, maybe that's pretentious. I am pretentious, we know. But, at the very least, I've learned a lot about this process through being a gear reviewer. Through having a lot of gear come across my table, I realize each time it's like, that made me less of a good human than I thought it was gonna. Interesting. And, partly because I found that there's a little bit more happiness in the realistic view, when I can pull it off, of course. There's more joy in understanding what's actually going on, which is good. Actually knowing what's happening makes these things easier to enjoy, not harder, which is weird. And it also lets you understand when people are trying to manipulate you using the materialistic emotions that we're feeling. And it allows you to balance things a little bit more accordingly. And overall, I don't know, in my experience at least, I've gotten more joy buying gear and understanding and appreciating gear when I'm doing so with open eyes, that is, and open arms, I guess. Both arms open for holding the wallet or something. But anyways, when I'm doing so, really understanding what's going on rather than buying into a fantasy, which is constantly going to disappoint me. So anyways, there you go. That's my review of materialism. The good, the great, the bad, and the ugly, I guess. It's mostly ugly, although I guess if you do it right, you can still find some good there. So anyways, I hope this has been interesting to you. Let me know in the comments how you've dealt with this in your everyday life, how you think about it, whether you think about it, and if you can get out of watches, tell me how you did. But have yourselves mostly an absolutely wonderful rest of the day, and remember that there's a lot of joy to be found in the things that you surround yourself with. But at the end of the day, joy is coming from somewhere else, and try and focus on that, I guess, where you can. Okay, have a good one, everybody. Bye now.